Every single day, more than 500 people pack up their lives and leave California. Not tourists, not seasonal workers, residents, engineers, nurses, teachers, retirees, walking away from the most famous state in America. Since 2020, California has lost more people to other states than any state in American history has ever lost in a single decade. We are talking about a number so large, it's hard to picture. Millions of lives uprooted. This is the state that invented the American dream. Gold rushes. Hollywood. Silicon Valley. So why are millions of people, including some of the richest men on earth, choosing to leave it behind? Today, we are breaking down exactly what's happening inside California, the real numbers, the real reasons, and where all these people are actually going. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand a story that's reshaping American politics, business, and everyday life. Let's start with the raw numbers, because they tell a story all by themselves. According to California's own Department of Finance, the state has lost residents to other U.S. states every single year since 2001. Not most years. Every year. Between 2021 and 2022 alone, California lost a net of over 400,000 residents to other states. That's roughly the entire population of a city like Minneapolis, gone in 12 months. From 2010 through 2024, nearly 10 million people moved out of California to other states. Only about 7 million moved in from elsewhere in the country. That gap, almost 3 million people, is the heart of this story. Los Angeles County alone lost more than 50,000 residents in a single recent year. Entire neighborhoods are quietly emptying out, even as new luxury towers keep rising above them. By mid-2025, California's population sat at roughly 39.5 million people. For a state that once grew explosively, adding 6 million residents in a single decade back in the 1980s, this is a historic slowdown, in some years, an outright decline. So what's actually holding California's total population up right now? Not Americans moving in. It's babies being born and immigrants arriving from other countries. Strip those two things away, and the picture underneath is a state that Americans themselves are abandoning. To understand why people are leaving, you first need to understand why they came. For over a century, California was the destination. The gold rush of 1849 pulled in fortune seekers from around the world. Hollywood turned it into the entertainment capital of the planet. The aerospace boom after World War II built entire cities out of nothing. And starting in the 1970s, Silicon Valley made California synonymous with innovation itself. During the 1980s alone, California's population surged by nearly 6 million people, a 25% jump in just 10 years. It felt unstoppable. It felt permanent. For decades, moving to California was shorthand for chasing a better life. So when that trend doesn't just slow down, but reverses, it's worth asking, what actually broke? Demographers point to a specific window. Net migration losses started quietly building around 2014 and 2015. For a few years, it was masked. New births and international arrivals kept covering the gap. Then came 2020. The pandemic didn't create California's problems, it exposed them. Remote work meant, for the first time, millions of high earners no longer had to live near their jobs. And many of them looked at their California housing bill and asked a simple question: why am I still here? That single shift, the freedom to work from anywhere, turned a slow leak into an open door. And once people started leaving in large numbers, the reasons behind it became impossible to ignore. If there's one root cause behind almost everything in this story, it's housing. California simply has not built enough homes for the people who already live there, let alone new arrivals. By 2024, the median home price in California topped $868,000, the most expensive housing market in the entire country. A typical mid-tier California home now costs more than double the price of a similar home in the rest of the United States. Compare that to Texas. The Austin metro area permits around 18 new homes for every 1,000 residents. Los Angeles and San Francisco permit roughly 2.5. California isn't just expensive, it has methodically restricted its own supply of new housing for decades. Zoning laws, environmental review requirements, and fierce local opposition to new construction have all made it painfully slow and expensive to build. Meanwhile, demand from high earners in tech and finance keeps bidding up the price of every available home. A recent University of California Berkeley study tracked what happens after people actually leave. On average, Californians who move out of state end up paying about $670 less per month in housing costs. Over a year, that's more than $8,000 back in their pocket. And it's not just housing. Groceries in California run about 11% higher than the national average. Gas prices are roughly 40% higher. Utility bills run about 61% above the national norm. It all adds up, month after month, year after year. Researchers at the California Policy Lab put it bluntly: for a lot of families, leaving isn't a lifestyle choice. It's what they call the move of last resort, driven by pure economic survival. California has the highest state income tax rate in the country, topping out above 13% for top earners. For a household making $200,000 a year, moving to a state with no income tax can mean saving $15,000 to $20,000 annually. That math doesn't just matter to billionaires. It matters to a mid-career engineer, a small business owner, a retired couple living on a fixed income. Multiply those savings across a decade, and staying in California starts to look like an expensive decision every single year. It isn't just income tax either. Layer on gas taxes, some of the highest in the nation, plus climate-related fees and utility surcharges, and everyday life in California carries a hidden tax on top of an already high cost of living. And there's more pressure coming. State lawmakers have discussed a proposed wealth tax, a one-time 5% charge on individuals worth more than $1 billion. Even the threat of that policy has accelerated departures among the ultra-wealthy. For everyday residents, it's less dramatic but just as real. It's the slow math of rent, gas, groceries, and taxes stacking up month after month, until the version of life they want simply costs less somewhere else. It's not just families leaving. It's companies. Tesla moved its headquarters to Texas. Oracle relocated to Texas. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise moved to Texas. A pattern is emerging, and it has a name: Texas. Some of the most recognizable names in American business have quietly changed their personal residency too. Executives, founders, and investors have moved to Texas, Nevada, and Florida, states with no personal income tax and fewer regulatory hurdles. Reports from 2026 point to a wave of high-profile relocations, tech founders and financiers shifting their primary residence out of California entirely, often citing tax policy and the proposed wealth tax directly. This matters more than it might seem. California's state budget leans heavily on a small number of extremely high earners. When even a fraction of them leave, the impact on tax revenue is disproportionate. Funding schools, roads, and public services becomes harder. Business advocates argue it's a warning sign of a bigger trend, that regulation and cost pressures aren't just pushing out residents, they're pushing out the very companies that create jobs in the first place. Beyond money, many residents cite quality of life. California is home to the largest homeless population of any state in the country, concentrated heavily in its biggest cities. For many longtime residents, watching their neighborhoods change has been a painful, visible part of daily life. Add to that the growing risk of wildfires, drought, and earthquakes, along with rising home insurance costs. Some companies have even stopped writing new policies in high-risk areas altogether. For many families, the physical risk of staying became part of the financial calculation too. Even something as simple as a daily commute plays a role. Long commute times, crowded schools, and stretched public services all wear on residents over years. Researchers found economic insecurity was the biggest driver, but it rarely travels alone. Here's a piece of this story most people miss. For years, California's population held roughly steady because international immigration quietly offset the number of Americans leaving. That safety net just weakened dramatically. In 2024, California gained about 248,000 people through international migration. By 2025, that number had been cut by more than half, down to around 126,000, following major federal immigration policy changes. New enforcement rules, a pause on immigrant visa processing for dozens of countries, and stricter asylum filing deadlines introduced in early 2026 have all sharply reduced the flow of newcomers into the state. That drop matters because those arrivals weren't just numbers. They filled labor gaps in agriculture, tech, and services. State officials have warned that losing this fresh supply of workers threatens entire industries that depend on it. So where is everyone actually going? On a per-person basis, Nevada is the #1 destination, pulling in far more Californians relative to its size than any other state. Idaho, Oregon, and Arizona follow close behind. Texas receives the largest raw number of ex-Californians of any state, thanks to its sheer size and booming job market in cities like Austin, Dallas, and Houston. In fact, 15% of Arizona's population has previously lived in California. But here's the twist. This migration is now reshaping the places people move to as well. Cities like Austin, Nashville, and Phoenix have seen housing costs rise faster than Los Angeles itself in recent years, partly fueled by the wave of Californians arriving with bigger budgets. This isn't just an economic story, it's a political one. California already lost a congressional seat after the 2020 census, the first time that had ever happened in the state's history. Projections now suggest California could hold as few as 48 House seats by 2030, down from 52, while Texas gains several more and Florida continues climbing. Population isn't just about people, it's about political power, federal funding, and national influence. Now, before this starts to sound like a eulogy, it's worth adding some balance. California's population isn't in free fall, it's closer to a plateau. In fact, in 2025, the state's population actually inched up slightly, gaining about 19,000 people. California remains the largest economy of any U.S. state, and if it were an independent country, it would rank among the top 5 economies in the entire world. It still attracts extraordinary talent, capital, and innovation. This is a story of a state losing its edge in growth, not a state collapsing. The path forward depends almost entirely on housing. Experts across the political spectrum agree on one thing. Until California dramatically increases how much housing it builds, this outflow will likely continue, no matter what other policies change. California isn't disappearing. But the California of the future may look very different from the one that defined the American dream for a century. Whether it can rebuild that dream, or keep watching millions walk away, is still being written. If this video helped you understand what's really happening, subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaping America.